Organizers aren't just storage, they also help you to reduce visual clutter. When all your stuff has a designated home, your brain relaxes and your day will be better. Keeping that in mind, I made this simple fabric basket because I certainly needed some storage to keep my craft supplies. It's a reversible basket, so you can have two different styles in one go. This particular one measures 4 inches in length, 3 inches in width, and after folding, final height becomes 4 inches. Now let's get into the project, starting with the fabric measurements. For the outside, you'll need 2 fabric pieces, each measuring 8 by 8 inches. All the fabrics I'm using are pre-washed and ironed cotton fabric. Then we'll need the same for the inside lining fabric, which is 2 pieces, each measuring 8 by 8 inches. Finally, we'll also need fusible fleece for the basket to give it a bit of steadiness. I'm going to use 2 pieces of fusible fleece, and you can cut 2 8 by 8 inches pieces, or you can cut it a little smaller than that. I usually cut mine about half an inch smaller than the size of the fabric. In this case, 7.5 by 7.5 inches. Other than that, you'll need pins or clips, a pair of scissors, a ruler, a fabric marking pen, and a sewing machine with a coordinating thread color. Moving on to the project, let's start by fusing the fleece to the outside fabric. You can fuse it to either outside or lining fabric. So I'm going to go with the outside fabrics. For that, place the wrong side of the fabric facing the shiny side of the fusible fleece. After that, iron it over from the fabric side. Those are the instructions for this specific fusible fleece, but the one you got may be slightly different. So make sure to read the instructions that comes with it. When fusing, usually you place the iron on one place for a few seconds and then move on to the other. Repeat that until the entire fleece is fused to the fabric. At this point, both pieces are properly fused, and now it's time to work on the depth of the basket. For that, we need to cut perfect square shapes at the bottom corners of all 4 fabric pieces. To make it simple, precise, and also to ease the next step, first place the right sides of the 2 outside pieces facing each other. Make sure they are aligned as well. Then use a few pins only on the upper part of the fabrics to keep the 2 layers in place. Do the same for the 2 lining fabric pieces as well. Keep the right sides facing each other and aligned. Then keep the 2 layers in place using several pins. I have already cut a 1.5 by 1.5 inches square from a board, and you can select any size according to your requirement. Then starting with the lining fabric pieces, place 2 sides of the square aligning with the 2 sides of one of the bottom corners like this. After that, draw along the 2 remaining sides of the square using a fabric marking pen. Do the same for the other bottom corner as well. Next, one by one, carefully cut along on those drawn lines. Just make sure you are only cutting up to those drawn points. Follow the same steps for the outside fabric pieces. Even though I used a paper square to cut fabric squares, you can also use your sewing ruler to cut squares in one go. But not everyone has sewing rulers. In that case, you can simply stick with what I do here. Trace the paper square onto the 4 bottom corners of lining and outside fabric pieces. and then carefully cut along the drawn lines. Now you know we don't throw away these fabric squares. You can keep these for your future quilting projects. At this point, both pieces are ready to sew, and I'm going to use an extra pin for the bottom areas of the fabric. After that, one by one, we are going to sew along the two sides and the bottom of the both outside and lining pieces. As you can understand, we are leaving the top side as the basket opening, and just to be clear, keep in mind that all of those sides will sew separately, not as a continuous line. Start with one side at a time and do a little back stitch at the beginning. Sew straight, and I'm leaving half an inch seam allowance. Do a little back stitch when you reach the other end of that side to securely end the sewing. Finally, trim the thread short, and you can then move on to the next side. It'll be the same steps for all the other sides. Start by doing a little back stitch at the beginning and sew straight, leaving a half an inch seam allowance. I'll show you how to sew all three sides for the outside piece here, and then it'll be the same for the lining fabric piece. At this point, three sides for both outside and lining bags are done, and we can now move on to the next step. But before doing that, make sure to spread all the seams apart by ironing it or simply pressing it like the way I do. The next step is to sew the unsewn corners of each bag, and by spreading the seams apart, you will ease that step for you. When doing that, first open the unsewn corner and keep the seam lines of the two adjacent sides aligned with each other like this. Make sure seams are spreading apart, and then use a pin or a clip to keep everything in place. By doing this, we are adding a depth to the basket, and we are going to sew along the line later. Do the same for the other corner and for the two corners for the lining fabric bag. As I told you earlier, now it's time to sew along those four corners one by one. Since this is a small area, remove the pin when you are ready to sew and hold everything in place while sewing. Make sure everything is aligned and seams are spreaded. Now starting from one of the ends, start to sew straight, leaving half an inch seam allowance. Also, don't forget to do a little back stitch at the beginning. When you reach the other end, do a little back stitch to securely end the sewing. Finally, trim the thread short and move on to the next corner. Since we added fusible fleece for the outside fabric pieces, you will find it a little stiffer to sew than the lining fabric bag. Just keep things slow and you will be just fine. Now both outside and lining bags are perfectly ready, and we can now move on to the assembling step. If you would like, you can even trim off some of the bulky seam areas, but I'm not going to do that here. For the assembling step, first turn the outside bag right side out. You can poke out the pointy corners using a small rod or leave it as it is for now. We'll get another chance to do that later in this project. Next, place the outside bag inside of the lining bag. Push it all the way to the bottom and we need to keep the two bags aligned. Now when you are doing this, first make sure the seam ends of both bags are aligning with each other. It'll be the best place to start with. After you have aligned the seam lines at one end, spread the seams apart on both bags and then use a pin or a clip to keep things in place. Do the same with the other seam end and then use a few more clips all around to keep the two layers aligned and in place. After clipping, we are going to sew all the way around the top end of the basket, but we need to leave some space to turn the right side out later. Now for that, mark 2 to 3 inches of space so you know where to start and stop. When you are leaving a space, don't include any seam ends to that space. It will make things more complicated. Now starting from one of the marked points, sew all the way around until you reach the other marked point. This fabric basket is a relatively small one with a narrow space. Because of that, to ease the process, I'm going to remove this small box part of the sewing machine first. Then it will allow us to freely move the basket while sewing. Start to sew by doing a little back stitch at the beginning and then sew straight, leaving a half an inch seam allowance. Remove the clips as you go and keep things slow when you are going over the areas with several fabric layers. If your sewing machine doesn't have a box part to remove, you can still continue your project. You only have to be a little cautious not to catch the fabric layer underneath it. If you do that, you'll be just fine. When you reach the other marked point, do a little back stitch to securely end the sewing. Finally, trim the thread. Now it's time to turn the right side out using the small opening we left. Whenever I have to turn things out, especially if there is fleece involved, what I do is I squish the entire thing first. By doing so, it increases the flexibility by reducing the stiffness from the fleece. It always works really well for me and I recommend you give it a try next time. After that, carefully turn the right side out without damaging any of the stitches at the edges. Poke out all the sides and corners as much as you can and then use a small rod through the opening to poke out the narrow pointy areas on both outside and lining bag. After this point, you won't get a chance to do that. Next, push the lining bag towards the inside of the outside bag. Actually, since this is a reversible basket, you may also do the other way around. Push the outside bag towards the lining bag. After that, hand press everything along the opening end of the basket. This will allow to keep the outside fabric outside and lining fabric inside, a clear separation between the two fabrics. To keep a more firm crease, you can also iron it all the way around the fabric basket. Also, while you are at it, iron everything over to give your basket a more professional look. As the final step, next we are going to sew all the way around the top opening end of the basket, and it will enclose the space we left for turning the right side out. Sew straight, leaving a 1/4 inch or less seam allowance. Simply just sew closer to the opening margin. Start at any point and do a little back stitch at the beginning. The only thing you have to make sure of is whether you enclose the space you left earlier. When you reach the starting point, don't forget to do a little back stitch at the end and finally trim the thread short. With that final step, you got yourself a cute little fabric basket. Now if you are looking for a basket to keep something taller, you can keep this as it is. But this basket is intentionally made this way so you can fold it at the top to give it a bit of style. Folding will keep the basket steady and grounded while giving you a two-tone stylish look. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is also a reversible fabric basket. So you can also turn it the other way around and it'll give you a completely different look. Instead of using a simple plain color like I did, you can use another printed fabric as the lining fabric to keep things more interesting. I hope you like this project and please let me know what you think of it. As always, thank you all for watching and I'll join you in the next one.